Ahoy VC, welcome to the Personal Oasis. This is the Blind Island. I'm your host Isaac, and today I'm going to go through some recent spins, things that have been hitting the turntable frequently, and what I've been listening to as of late. Now, just because I'm featuring some things, this doesn't mean everything that I've been listening to. A lot of the stuff here is from my recent arrivals, so if you want to go and check out that video, I'll include a link in the description below. But yeah, we're gonna take a look at what we have, and I apologize for kind of looking a little frumpy today. I'm just in a PJ's mood, so let's get started. First, we're going to start with what's playing right now, and that's Loudon Wainwright the Third's album 2. I know that I spoke about this one a little bit earlier, a few weeks ago, and I love this album. If you're a fan of The Tallest Man on Earth, Fleet Foxes, Bob Dylan, Bon Iver, early Bon Iver, then you're going to really enjoy this album. It's very relatable, has a lot of, blue collar type of lyricism, kind of in the vein of John Prine. There's some humor, but it's a lot of dark humor. I love this album, and it sounds very contemporary for the time period that it came out. It sounds fresh today as it did 40 years ago, 50 years ago when it was released. So give this one a listen if you're really into a folk singer-songwriter. Then I have an album I picked up recently, and that's George Benson, The Other Side of Abbey Road. And for those of you that really enjoy the Beatles, this is going to be an album that's a must listen. I think that it takes a lot of those classic Beatles tunes from Abbey Road and just really brings that wonderful jazz fusion sound to them. And the fact that this was also released within a matter of weeks after Abbey Road had been initially released makes this equally as impressive, that he could take that and interpret it into something that was completely his own is very, very cool. You can pick up copies of this on Discogs super cheap, and I would highly recommend it for just everyone. Go and listen to this album. It's a very underrated little piece of history. Then we have Freddie Hubbard's Red Clay, another CTI album. And I love the CTI label. I think that it is still one of those that's starting to climb in estimation with a lot of vinyl collectors. It has that same glossy type of cover as Impulse, because Creed Taylor started off with the Impulse label and went off to A&M to create the CTI label. These are just well-produced, well-packaged records, and they have some of the best musicians to ever play in the jazz scene. Freddie Hubbard is surrounded by Lenny White, Joe Henderson, Ron Carter, and Herbie Hancock on this date, just to give you some names. This is a great album, really good fusion, and for those of you who are looking to crack more into jazz but are still a little on the fence about it, this is another great place to start. Check out George Benson, Other Side of Abbey Road, and then come to Red Clay. I think you'll see a lot that you like. Next is another album that I recently found, and that's Moanin' by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. This is a seminal Blue Note hard bop release, and what makes it so great is that for jazz heads, it's a top 10 hard bop release. It completely solidifies Art Blakey as one of the greatest band leaders of all time. And for newcomers, it's so listenable. It's not a difficult and studious album. You can just throw this on and enjoy it. There is a lot of swinging beats and grooves. This really did kind of start the soul jazz period. Moanin', the title track here has a lot of swing to it. It's so great. I can't sing this album's praises enough. If you can't find an original copy, which I highly doubt that you could, or even the 1966 reissue, just go and listen to it on Spotify. It is an incredible record, and one that will most likely get you into jazz as well. Then I have been listening to Ennio Morricone's soundtrack to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I picked this one up about 4 years ago at a street festival for $1, and these albums are getting a lot harder to find since Morricone died this past year. And I mean, what more can you say about the soundtrack? It is adventurous and lively, sneaky and fun. It has everything that you want in a good soundtrack. This is the Western soundtrack in my mind. There's also dashes of humor. I think throwing in that little screeching voice really shows that they were willing to be playful and have fun with this. It's an incredible album with tons of suspense, tons of just interesting ideas thrown around. If you haven't listened to the full soundtrack, I highly recommend that you do. Great record. Then another record that I've been just loving is Tropez, Short Trip to Space. I included a needle drop of this in my recent finds, and again, this one has a very mixed opinion online. I've gone to many forums and rateyourmusic.com. It sits at about a 3 out of 5, and I don't understand it. It's so good. I love the funkiness that's on here. Yeah, it does sound of its time, but that's kind of what makes it fun too. I love those inner stickers on here on the Marlin label, and I mean, look at this album artwork. It's awesome. You got Space Lizard back here. You got a flying jellyfish on an unknown planet, and then you have this wonderful gatefold telling you who's on each track, who's the supporting musicians on here, with another spacey scene. I think that this is a wonderful record, and I am willing to fight with anyone who disagrees with me, because I think that this is an album that needs to be rediscovered and reevaluated. Great album, wonderful, spacey funk. So cool stuff. And another record that I've been listening to in the wake of this 2020 election is We're Only in It for the Money by Frank Zappa and the Mothers. And I love this album because it eviscerates the left and the right equally. And I think that we need to really be paying attention to this type of message right now. We are getting really divided. We're getting into tribalism. We continue to think that we're right and everybody else is wrong, when in actuality, if we really take a step back, look at what we believe, a lot of it can be pretty funny. And we want to make sure that we're able to relate to other people. So this is a great album. Great for stepping outside of your comfort zone. If you're into avant-garde pop rock, this is one of the very best that ever came out. One of my favorite albums of all time, and I highly recommend anyone who is wanting to be pushed a little bit, listen to this record. And then finally, I have the Electric Prunes Mass in F minor. I know that some people have mixed opinions on this album too. This isn't quite exactly an Electric Prunes album so much as it is a David Axelrod production. David Axelrod wanted to do a psychedelic mass, and the Electric Prunes kind of wound up being his session musicians. And a lot of people say that the Electric Prunes really weren't up to the task of fulfilling all of David Axelrod's ideas, and also people who love the Electric Prunes are really angry that David Axelrod came in and completely changed the sound of the Electric Prunes. But I love this record. I think it's got a lot of interesting sounds, and I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy their second album, Underground, or even their first record, but I think that there is some spirit of experimentation here that is really enviable and something worth diving into. So guys, that's what I have been listening to as of late. Were there any records in here that you recognize that you've been listening to? What have you been listening to? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope that you guys have a great day on your own personal oasis. Cheers.